Hi, everyone. My name is Diego Lamonto. I'm the VP of Product Marketing at UiPath, and I'm excited to talk to the Product Marketing Alliance about how we launched and scaled product marketing at UiPath during our continuing hypergrowth phase of the company. So let's dig into some of the things that we learned and things that hopefully can help you in your journey as a product marketer. So just real quickly, why am I here? Why should you listen to me? I'm going to talk a little bit about what it was like, why, what it's like being in this hypergrowth phase and the things that you could take away from that. But also, I think, our situation and my situation was a bit unique. I got to build a product marketing organization, really from scratch at scale, which you don't often get to do. Either it grows slowly or you're taking over a team or you're building, something small to start. I came in and I had the mandate to build a team that would, scale to support, a very large company over time. And so that brought unique challenges, but it also gave me the opportunity to approach this from a very sort of first principles perspective way. And then not only that, but I had to balance the speed at which our market was moving, and we needed to move with that scaling and do things in a way that would enable us to be effective as we grew. So there's some interesting stuff there to talk about. First off, I just want to give a little bit of background into what is UiPath and what is the sense of the scale we're talking about here. We're an enterprise software company. We are a robotic process automation company, RPA. And what that means is that we have software, we provide software that enables companies to automate common, routine, mundane processes that humans don't really like doing or don't really add a lot of value to, or really don't do as well in many cases as what a robot can do. And automation is not a new thing. We've been talking about automation since the advent of computers. But what's different is our approach. Most of the automation that was done before UiPath was done programmatically through APIs or through, building, new software to automate things. We took a different approach. We give the creators, the people who are doing the work, the ability to build their own automations by mimicking the way they work with the applications on their desktop. This is a completely different approach. It's basically automating through the UI, which is why we're called UiPath. And if you want to learn more about that, you can go on our site, watch demos, etc. I don't want to spend all our time here explaining that, but I want to give you a little bit of background into that. So, our positioning is, we make robots so people don't have to be robots. We see this time and time again. As people become comfortable working with their software automations, they see no one's losing their job and they go and ask for more automation, and it's a sort of a virtuous cycle, a flywheel, so to speak. And that's really, how our customers are coming to embrace it. We are in a long line of many who have, been attempting to make the human life better through automation. If you go back to 1960, there's this, classic paper by J.C.R. Licklider called Man-Computer Symbiosis. I think he said it, one of the earliest who said it well, around computing machines will do the routinizable work that must be done to prepare for insights and decisions in technical and scientific thinking. There's a great book on J.C.R. Licklider called The Dream Machine. It was recently reissued by Stripe Press. If you have any interest in the technology industry and how computers were developed, you got to read this book. He's kind of like the Forrest Gump of the computing industry. He shows up everywhere along the way in all the major phases, and a major contributor to the progress. Wonderful, wonderful story. And we carry that through today. This is our CEO, Daniel Dines, and his quote is, "Once you give a person their own robot and let them remove mundane tasks from their life, this brings them joy. That person becomes more productive and creates more value for the enterprise." And we're seeing this in the results. I'm going to get to the product marketing part of this in just a second, but I wanted to give you an idea of sort of the impact by sharing this clip from the U.S. Air Force's Spark Tank, which is like their Shark Tank. They hold a contest every year on ideas for funding, And this team that did a pilot of RPA at the Air Force came on stage and presented their results. And I think it's pretty astounding, but this is a good example of what we've seen.
Walking into the Spark Tank is the robotic process automation team, deploying an army of bots to do mundane tasks that airmen just don't want to do anymore, to give those airmen time back to the mission.
I'm Tech Sergeant Sherrod James Overbay.
And I'm Captain Melinda Monahan, and we're joining you today from the Air Force Personnel Center to introduce you to the Digital Airman.
For 12 years, I've been a personnelist in the United States Air Force. For my entire career, I've been doing nothing but manual and repetitive processes. Not only that, it frustrated me to the point where I tried to retrain out of my career field 2 times just so I could feel like I was of value to our Air Force. But that's just me. At AFPC, we have 2,500 airmen who are doing those same type of processes, serving nearly 2 million customers who are airmen, retirees, and their families. That motivated us to come up with our solution, robotic process automation. RPA is a software that mimics the activities and actions of a worker on their computer, and then it automates the process that they're working. Not only that, we created a process at AFPC as a proof of concept to automate the permanent change of station orders authentication, and it's already saved us 15,000 man hours, and we developed it at a cost of less than $5,000 in under 20 hours of work. Not only that, we have authority to operate on the Air Force network, so we're ready to deploy these bots whenever we can have the work. That's just the beginning. Imagine if we developed 10 of these bots a month, we could have 1.8 million hours saved annually, and we could liberate 616 airmen from these antiquated processes.
Okay, so I'll stop it there. Basically, that's the typical story. We spent $5,000. We spent 20 hours to build a bot. It saved 15,000 hours of time. So that's why we're in such a hyper growth mode. The ROI is just tremendous. So it's been a really easy sell and spend for companies. So just to illustrate the hyper growth, we crossed 50 million in Q1. That's around when I joined, and we crossed 360 million in ARR at the end of last year, and it's continuing to grow at this scale. So it truly is one of the fastest software companies in the world, which is a fantastic place to be. I'm very happy, but it brings some unique challenges. And I was brought in to help build product marketing back then with very little to build on. So I was able to do that. And let me explain how I went about doing that and what I think the product marketing principles that apply here. So let's talk about how it got started. So first off, before I joined, RPA was taking off, but we didn't have a really well-known brand yet. So we were really in the midst of the battle with our competitors. We were somewhat neck and neck. We've pulled ahead in the last couple of years, thankfully, but it was we were not a household name by any means. And there was no product marketing at UiPath. There, of course, in an enterprise software company of any scale, there's some product marketing activities going on. We had releases, we had collateral, we had, positioning. We did webinars, we did a lot of stuff, but it wasn't a really a well-defined and organized function. So I was brought in to make that happen. My mandate was to build out a team, right? But build it at scale, but do it fast. This is our opportunity, this is our moment. We went from a couple hundred people to a couple thousand people in just a year at UiPath. And while you're doing that, start having an impact. And while you're having an impact, make sure that you build in a way that doesn't impair our long-term viability and the long-term growth of this company. So that was my mandate. Do it fast, have an impact, but do it smart for the future. And so that's what I was told to do, and I was excited to do. So when I sat down to start this job, as I said earlier, I was in this interesting position of getting to build at scale, but and not having anything to start from, but also get to do it at a big scale. So I thought, what are my principles? What are my first principles? If you're not familiar with the concept of first principle thinking, it's really deconstructing a situation, an outcome from the ground up with no previous sort of, but throw away all the previous ways of thinking and rethink just how, what's the best way to get to your outcome if you didn't have any historical experience. And so I've done that a lot in my life. There's a great book, a great article called The Cook and the Chef by Tim Urban on a website called Wait But Why, that really explains first principle thinking through the lens of his experience talking to Elon Musk. Also a must read. So I applied first principle thinking to scaling product marketing. And these are my first principles. I'm going to go through each one in a little bit of depth here. Okay, so the first, and to me, which has been the most important, but obviously the biggest changing principle, is to spend time with people, get to know them, build relationships, build one-on-one personal relationships, because when you're scaling, you need to shortcut a lot of the niceties, a lot of the getting to know you, a lot of the uncertainties that happen when you're trying to figure out what to do and how to do it. And the best way to do it shortcut is to get to know people. So in a pre-pandemic world, my advice to everyone on my team, my advice to anyone I worked with, anyone I was mentoring, was to get on the plane. There's no better way to build a personal relationship than to spend time with someone in person. You see a lot of dinners there. We're cooking dinner together in one picture. We're eating dinner in Bucharest in another picture. And then there's a trip I made to India. A couple of those people are actually product marketers on my team, where got to meet a bunch of the people in India. That was incredibly valuable. I will tell you, I don't have a good answer for how to do this now. I think we're all struggling with that. Zoom calls don't really cut it. When you're on a Zoom call and it's over, you want to get off. You don't want to spend more time. You don't want to really sit there and have dinner with someone on Zoom. So, I think this one's a challenge, but the need to build a great relationship with the people around you, not just the people you work with, that work for you, everyone up and down the organization, won't go away. So we have to figure that one out. But it still is an important first principle. Listen, absorb, and synthesize. As a product marketer, you listen first and talk later. Do not come with your preconceived notions, opinions, and perspectives outweighing the importance of what people have to tell you. This is hard for a lot of people. It's hard for me. I have ideas and perspectives that I want to share. But as a product marketer, especially when you're coming into a new company and you're scaling it, you need to understand what people can share with you. There's so much out there that is not immediately apparent. And when you're going out talking to people, and like I said, I spent a lot of time talking to people, I must have gone on. I know I went to Bucharest 5-6 times. I went to Bellevue, Washington, which is where one of our development centers are, at least 5 times in that first year as well. I learned so much. I absorbed it. And as a great product marketer, or what a great product marketer can do, is synthesize what they're hearing from others and filter that through their experiences and their skill set and turn it into something great, like a great positioning or a great campaign or a great launch. So it's really, really important. Getting on the plane is part of that. Not saying, I don't agree right away. Just listen, absorb what people are telling you, and synthesize. That's the mark of a great product marketer. Hiring and managing is your most important job. You hear this all the time. It's obviously true or very important, and most people obviously understand that, but I can't underscore how important hiring and managing is in hyper-growth mode. First off, you have to get great people who can execute when you're not there to make decisions or act, right? Hypergrowth means a lot of things are happening. A lot of decisions need to be made. So take your time while being fast. This is hard, but make sure you're hiring great people. And those A players really go a long way. The other thing, and this is something that I've always believed in, but it really underscored through my experience at UiPath, is a diverse team is crucial. I've believed in diversity and diversity of teams for a long time, and my gut intuition was that it was good, but I've never seen and had to put it in practice as much as I have here. We are a truly global company, founded in Bucharest, headquartered in New York, major innovation center in Bellevue. We have offices in, well, they're no longer open, but we have entities in dozens and dozens of cities. We're active in every region of the world, and my team is spread across the entire world. And I love that. We have different types of people. We have different points of view, different perspectives, and it really makes the team much more effective, in my opinion. So hire a diverse team, bring diverse perspectives, and make sure you hire great people who can scale and have growth mindsets and are willing to live with the uncertainty and maybe some of the hiccups that come with hypergrowth. We've struggled with systems and processes, and I think these are pretty normal for a company that's growing up so fast. And some people don't like that, and they struggle with it, and they're not great fits for us. But the people who can roll with the punches, that's the kind of person that works in a hypergrowth company. So making sure you hire well is super important. Another really important principle is doing and owning the hard things. So I think, if you've read the book, The Hard Thing About Hard Things, I think it's a great book about how important it is to just, confront the challenges head on. If you want to be a leader, if you want to scale and make this a leadership position, you have to take on the hard things. You have to make hard decisions. You have to face the challenges, whether it's people or it's a tough news you have to deliver, or you have to make a tough decision about personnel, or you have to admit a mistake. You have to tackle those things head on, and people will respect that. And I think it's actually important to scaling, because when you come in and you tell and show people, your peers, the people above you and the people that are working for you, that you take responsibility, I think it makes everything just go faster and more smoothly. People are less hedging with you, and they're less hedging with your team. And so whenever something goes wrong, you go front and center and take the responsibility for your team, right? Sorry, I didn't coach that person the right way. I didn't give them the information they needed. This was something they never did before, and I should have spent more time with them on it, or I should have given it to someone else. When people come at you with problems and you jump in right away and say, this is my fault, I own it, let me tell you why I think I made a mistake here, you'll find that, first of all, it diffuses the situation. 2, it protects your people from really sometimes unwarranted and unnecessary criticism. And 3, it really just builds more trust in you and your team. So doing the hard things and having accountability are so important to scaling a function. You have to do it. Another really important thing is finding quick wins. So if you're going to come in and you're going to build and scale an organization, and you're going to establish product marketing for the first time in a company, you have to pretty quickly show what product marketing means. And you do that by executing on something fast. Because most people don't really understand what product marketing does, quite frankly, in many cases. So come in, find something that you can own fast, and execute on that and show people what you bring to the table. That will make it easier down the road when you need to do more stuff that rely on people trusting you. The example I can give you is when I walked in, we've had many very successful product releases prior to my joining the company, but we didn't have really a lot of successful marketing releases. We were still kind of figuring our way around. Marketing was still relatively new when I joined, at scale at least. So yeah, I jumped right in while I was getting on the plane, talking to people, learning, absorbing, synthesizing. I also jumped right into our major release in 2018. It was coming out only a month after I joined, 2 months after I joined. But I established some new ways of marketing the release, how we took it out there, the events that we did around it, the collateral and the assets and the training that we did for sales. And people loved that. They saw, okay, I get what this is going to bring to us. Yeah, I'll take his call, or let's work with product marketing. And the product owners saw why it was important to work with us. Sales saw why it was important to work with us. And it was just a really low-hanging fruit, quick win, something I've done before and I knew how to do. I could apply it. Our marketing release process has greatly improved even since that first one, through a lot of the A players I brought in that have made it even better. But that quick win really helped us a lot. You need to balance today with tomorrow. You know, when you're in the fog of it, right? When you're executing and you need to be successful in action and get things done, it's easy to take shortcuts. It's easy to make some short-term decisions that hurt you for the long run, but you really need to keep a balance between the two. Great examples of this are hiring, right? So we go back to that. Sometimes when you're in the midst of hiring a lot of people really fast, you end up with different titles, different salary ranges, and that's going to hurt you down the road. So you have to also make sure that what you're doing in the present is not going to impair you in the future. So that's a really important principle to apply to as well. And then another important principle, and we talked about listening, absorbing, synthesizing. We talked about people, coming to you. One byproduct of that is that people are going to come to you, especially if you show quick wins early, and now they're going to want you to do things, and they're going to want stuff from you. If you can become the hub, and we did quickly, we had a lot of different teams coming to us, not even us necessarily understanding what we did, but outside of marketing, thinking that we would do other parts of marketing or just things that we really weren't ready to do or we couldn't do effectively yet or weren't in our bandwidth. You got to be able to say no. You have to be able to prioritize. A trick that I think works here is when someone comes to you, you ask them to justify why we should be working on this. Tell them to show you the value, tell them to show you the data, tell them to explain, why this is so important, and give them an idea of, what your resources look like and, what they're working on. 7 times out of 10, when you force people to come back and justify why you need to do something for them, they don't come back. So that'll cut, and this is just my estimate, but I think it's probably close. Probably cut 70% of the requests that come into you just from asking them to justify what they want with data. And if they, not always can they pull the data, and if it's really important, they'll keep coming back. But often it's just, hey, I'll ask that person to do this thing for me. And then, they get that from you, but you're stuck. And this is so important because, you only get even if you are building a big team, you only get so many resources, right? You only have so much room in your bucket to fill with things to do, right? So if let's say your bucket can fit 50 rocks and you're standing there on a beach with 30 rocks, 3,000 rocks, you got to be very selective. And if you put the wrong ones in there, you're going to find yourself coming out a year later, a year and a half later saying, we weren't effective. And that's because you probably didn't prioritize the right things. Okay, last 2 are my most product marketing-y advice. I am an absolute huge proponent of storytelling, narrative positioning, making the connection for people in their head, telling an end-to-end story, elevating what you're marketing to a higher level to give people the context in their mind, help them understand how this fits into their worldview, help them understand what the challenge is and what problem you help them solve or pitfall you help them avoid. You have to talk in these terms because there's too much coming at people. They're not going to listen to your features. They don't care about your product. They care about their pains. This is kind of marketing 101, but I think it's really important. And while it's marketing 101, an incredible amount of very successful, great marketers or great people in an enterprise software company don't even really do this, right? So you always take it back, simplify the story, less words, but make it a story. And this is going to tie into what I'll talk about our greatest success. I think we were most effective in helping our company tell our story of our product. And then my next and last first principle advice is creating moments. What you want to do is put your team and rally your team towards a moment in time that they are working towards, that everyone is aligning their efforts to. And there's two reasons to do this. One, it's much easier to get people on the same page and actually delivering if there's a deadline. That's just how it works. If there's a thing out there that people are working towards, a launch date, an event, some moment that is going to drop and everyone needs to be ready for it, that date is what drives people to get things done. If you don't have a moment in mind, if you don't have a date there, it's easy to just get caught up in the day-to-day, and it's easy to just be reactive. But if you have a date out there, you got to get proactive and work towards it. So I think it's great for motivating people to work on the right things and aligning your team and unifying your team. Secondly, I'm a firm believer that doing a big moment type of marketing event is more powerful than a lot of little dribs and drabs of outreach. I think that when you can bring a lot of people together, you do a major promotion, you spend your money on big moment type events, you get outsized attention from it. So the picture you see here is a rehearsal of Param Kalon, who is our Chief Product Officer, unveiling our new product suite, which is the story that I'm going to tell you about in just a second here, at our Forward 3 event, UiPath Forward. And we had thousands of people in the audience, tens of thousands watching it live, and hundreds of influencers paying attention. And the outcome from this was much greater than we would have gotten from a lot of little events. We just brought a lot of people together at one time, and nothing attracts a crowd like a crowd, and it just really outsized the impact. I'm going to talk about the impact that it had in just a second. But my other tip is create moments, have people working towards something. It has many, many benefits. Okay, so those are my first principles of scaling product marketing. Next, I want to talk a little bit about what product marketing looks like in UiPath. I know everyone is always curious, what does product marketing look like in your company? It's a little different everywhere around, so I'll explain that. And then I'll talk about the results, where we made differences, what worked, what didn't work, and how we're scaling. And then I have a couple of last thoughts for you guys. So product marketing is a function of the marketing organization. I report directly to our CMO, Bobby Patrick. He is extremely supportive, understands what we do, understands how and why it's so important, and is a great supporter of the role. We are very much aligned with the product organization, though. Every product marketing manager who works on a product, and I'll share our org chart in a second, is paired up with a product owner and works very closely with that product owner. I work extremely close with our Chief Product Officer. We try to be as much of a partner to the product team as possible. We think that's important. But at the same time, we also work very closely with sales. We have, and I made sure that we established a very good and close relationship with sales enablement and sales leadership. So we get on, we train sales on what's coming, how to tell the story, what the benefits are, the differences, competitive, et cetera. We spend a lot of time with sales. We are that conduit to them for product information and knowledge. And then we're also a conduit to the rest of marketing. We're sort of the glue between the product and the go-to-market teams. And we relish that role, and I think we do it pretty well. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about the structure of my team. We have 5 core teams that we're broken up into. The platform team is the core that very traditional product marketing. You may call them technical product marketers, but they're the ones who are typically paired with a product owner and have responsibility, ownership over one, or if they're small, more than one product. Our community team works to help build the marketing to our community. All right, we have over 750,000 RP developers in our community. Over 40,000 are active every month in our forum. It's a very strong, vibrant community, and they will help build and market the messaging to that group. We have in 2-3 days, if you're interested, if you're watching this live, we have our developer conference. You can go on uipath.com/devcon and sign up. And we have a great event for them. It's just an example of the things, some of the things they do. We have a competitive analyst on our team. He focuses on the go-to-market side of the competitive world, looking at how our competitors are positioning, marketing, messaging, and helping our sales organization position against them. We also have a product-focused competitive person who's looking, understanding how they. We have a content team. They help us build a lot of the materials that we're using externally, or a lot of sales enablement materials. They are fantastic at that. We have an operations team, which handles a lot of the release mechanics, product communications. They manage our insider preview program. So they handle a lot of the product marketing operations. So this is sort of how our team is structured. And the net result has been that we have been great at unifying the company around our message and our story. I think people see us as really uniters inside UiPath. We've built a very, I think, successful marketing release cadence. As I talked about earlier, we've elevated it, not just great product releases, but great marketing releases of the product. And we've crafted the narrative positioning for the company. And I think it's no small feat, and maybe little, I'm very proud of the fact that I think we've had a pretty big impact on the company in terms of how we've helped our company tell our product story. So I'll explain what I mean by that. When I joined, this was our platform story. Studio, Orchestrator, Robots. Those are our 3 products. They were pretty straightforward. Design your automation, deploy your robots, and run your automation. And it worked, and it sold. But as time has evolved, our product offering has become much more complex. We have, I think, about 14 products now, and we were now facing, this is going back to about mid-2019, we were facing a lot of complexity in how to tell the story. And so I and my team spent a lot of time getting on planes, talking to people, spending time with Daniel, our CEO, spending time with Bobby, our CMO, spending time with Param, our Chief Product Officer, and spending time with each of the individual product owners and product marketers to understand what is it that you're releasing. And we needed to take all that and craft an elegant narrative. And our team spent a lot of time working through it, and we were able to take, this 3-part story, and what we think effectively turned that 3-part story into a 14 or 50, I don't even know how many is on here now because we keep adding more. But instead of just a smorgasbord of products, what we did was we couched it in context of a life cycle. So once again, telling a story, giving people something that they can hang on to, that they understand, and make the absorbing the information more simpler. So what we said was, we're not just an automation company. We're an automation company that gives you tools along every stage of the life cycle, from discovering what to automate, to building those automations, to managing your automations, to running those automations in production, to building engagements and engagement interfaces, engagement mechanisms for people to work directly with their robots, and to measuring the performance and business outcomes of your automation program. We took this, we crafted this narrative, we released it at the big marketing moment, which was Forward 3 in October, and it's had a huge impact on the company. We see this now, every corner of the company is using this as context in how they talk about even what they do. Our training, I talked about our RPA developer community. Our academy team, which builds the training modules, organizes this way. Our products teams are organizing themselves this way. We've helped the company really shape the narrative, and immediately upon releasing this out to the market, analysts started talking about it. Okay, we get it. This is where automation's going. It's end to end. So I'm very proud of what my team has done here. I think this is a great example of approaching it from first principles and telling a story. And I think, to further validate the impact on the company, I will play this clip from Daniel Dinez, our CEO, from the Forward event, his closing speech, right near the end. He talks about this process.
We had an aha moment, and helping, I worked with our product marketing team to build these presentations and Param's presentation. And the big moment when was really mapping we had like 14 products, new products released today. And we didn't know how to explain to people. And it was a big moment when we've come with this concept of stages of delivering automation and mapping everything to the stages. And that's actually what any business
So I'll stop it there. So validation directly from our CEO on the impact product marketing has had at UiPath. So, our challenge was to launch this thing and scale it. Let me get out of full screen there. Launch this thing, have it impact, but also have it scaled. Be able to scale was really our charter. And I think, ultimately by sticking to those principles, we were able to do that. And I feel those principles are pretty universal. Okay, what didn't work? We learned a couple of things that I could advise on, perhaps you try to avoid. Sometimes the first principle thinking can get you in trouble. I had this thought that one of the things that I wanted was to avoid, trying to outsource too much of our work. And so as far as content production went, I tried to build a content agency inside product marketing. And while it worked at first, once we started scaling, it didn't work, right? Balancing today and tomorrow. And we started to hit bottlenecks. We realized that was not the right model. So we use outside vendors, writers, agencies where appropriate. Our PMMs do a lot of the content production themselves, but we are fine and we budget now for it. And we've taken that content team and we've turned them into more focus on the sales enablement material, and it's been fantastic. So, it was a hard thing. It wasn't working. We shifted and we ended up in a better place. Another thing we tried to do was build industry product marketing team, an industry product marketing organization inside. So I had another silo there in my org chart, and it didn't work because the company was not ready for it yet. While we were producing a ton of material and getting the messaging out there and I think doing our job well, sales was not structured that way. Product wasn't structured that way. So we actually couldn't really follow through on a lot of the pipeline we were building. So we realized that probably a little too early for us to go vertical instead of horizontal. And so we shifted back to horizontal. And the last thing is I think we could be better at measuring things. I think probably hear that consistently across product marketing. I know we've had impact. We have very clear, proof in terms of how the company is doing and how our products are doing and sales is doing, but it's just really hard to pinpoint what's working specifically and what's not working in a quantitative way. So if anyone, I know PMA is doing a good job of getting metrics and KPIs, and I've read all the reports and I started adopting some of them, but I think we could be even better. So if anyone has great ways of doing that, please, we'd love to hear it from you. So those are some of the things that haven't worked, and really our next stop is continuing to scale. Building keeping the agility we have now while, creating a lasting organization as we get bigger and bigger. Making sure that we kept, thankfully, I think, kept in mind title inflation and just making sure that we don't have differences, too many differences in the structure of the team. And I think we're well suited for that. So 2 last topics. First one, I'm going to address, I think, the most common question I get from people when they find out I'm a VP of product marketing. Well, okay, how do I become a VP, or how do I elevate product marketing in my company is the question I'll get. And, I didn't have a good answer for this, so I sat down and thought about this. And here's what I believe. I think to really elevate, as far as your own career goes, and, bring product marketing at the VP level in your org, you probably need experience that goes beyond product marketing to really understand how because when you get to the VP level, now you're really working within the whole, your peers are across the company, and you have to understand your role in context of everything else. And I think I, grew up in product marketing. I then became a head of marketing at a couple of startups. And I learned about the end-to-end marketing function that way. And then I went and ran product strategy at a medium-sized company. And I learned much more about product that way. And then I came back to run product marketing at a bigger scaling company. And I think that was a good route. I don't know if it's replicable. I don't know, I know it's not an easy thing to set out and do, but I would say if you're thinking about how do I grow further, I would say try to get more broad experience and try to find a way to parlay that into running a product marketing at a larger organization. I think that broad experience helps. And one of the main reasons why having broad experience helps is that you really need to be able to hold your own with other executive management. When you get there, you have to be sharp. You have to be able to, to show and quantify what you're doing. You have to be able to explain your ideas. You have to be able to convince people. You have to show leadership. And the only way you can do that is through real world experience. It's just, you can't, you don't know how to do it until you've actually done it. So I think that's important. I think you need to always show the big market impact that product marketing can have. I love this book, Play Bigger. It talks about creating a category and how to tell your product story in a bigger way. I think you need to have that. When you go in, if you're interviewing and you're talking to people, you need to bring in, yes, we're going to create a narrative here that drives the market. That's the kind of thing, that's kind of thinking that, C-level wants from their VP level. And then if you get the job and you feel like an imposter, don't worry. Everyone does, no matter who you are. At some point, you say, these people are trusting me or looking at me like I know what I'm doing, and I'm just figuring it out as I go along. And you know what? Most people are feeling that way. So don't worry about it. The reality is that if you made it, first of all, thank you for sticking around this long, but if you made it this long, you probably love this topic so much, and you probably know so much more about this topic than anyone else in the world. You probably know more than 99.999% of people in the world about product marketing. You're the right person to figure it out, even if you don't know the answer right now. Don't forget that. Just understand that imposter syndrome is real. Just deal with it. And then one of the most important things is to take responsibility. We talked about it earlier. Mistakes are okay if you own it. At UiPath, we have a Love Mistakes Slack channel where we post our silly mistakes and not so silly mistakes, and we embrace them. We know it's part of doing something big. And so that's my advice for those of you who want to be a head of product marketing at a larger company or a growing company. And then my final thought, and I just couldn't resist something I feel like, I've learned in some hard ways, but some wisdom that I think has come clear to me. I really like to share this with people who are either mentoring or working with, to help them grow their careers is, be really conscious about what roles you take and what challenges you take on. To use a sports analogy is, you only get a few at bats or you only get a few swings, right? The reality is time is a finite resource. We only, if it's going to take a couple of years each at bat, you only get so many in your prime, right? So don't waste those swings. If you're working on something that isn't significant, you don't feel like it's going anywhere, you don't think it has, the market potential, the market's not there, the product's just not good, it's probably more work. Don't take it on as a badge of honor and think you could fix it with marketing or product marketing. Be realistic and have a tough conversation with yourself on, is this worth me using one of my at-bats on? And I'm not saying get out after 3 months or even 6 months. You got to give something probably at least a year to really, understand it well enough to know it. But you get to that point, and if it's not working, I think you have to make a courageous choice and maybe sometimes start moving on, even if it doesn't feel like a good thing to do. But you don't want to waste your at-bats. You only get so many of them. And I know it's easy for me to say, I'm at UiPath, we're doing great, but I've had many swings myself, and I had to make some tough decisions and leave some spots where it wasn't working out. And I think that's ultimately what helped me get here and have one that seems to be working out. So make those tough decisions. You got to do the groundwork underneath the covers. I spent hours and hours, dozens, maybe hundreds of hours, learning about automation, RPA, even before I got a call to meet Daniel, our CEO. It was something I was passionate about. It was something no one saw, but ultimately helped me get to where I was. So follow your passion, do the things that no one sees, but are really going to help you become better and better at your job. And so, the question is, what are you doing that no one sees? And what is your heart telling you to do? Your gut probably knows. Your heart, your gut, whatever body part knows if this is right. And if it's not, move on. Anyway, okay. So that is my advice, and that is what I've learned from scaling product marketing at a hypergrowth company like UiPath. I hope that was helpful, and let's take some questions. I believe this should be working.
Yeah, that's great. Now, Diego, go ahead.
Okay, great. Sorry about that, guys. I lost the feed as I moved over to questions. Okay, so a bunch of questions came in. I'm going to go through them one by one as much time we have and try to answer them. So first off, thanks once again for listening to this and sticking around this long. So T asks, how have you found communicating internally through the pandemic? Are people more or less willing to give you their time? I feel like it's kind of evolved and changed a little bit over the course of the pandemic. Like most, we kind of reacted in mid-March, at least in the US. Mid-March, everything changed. Where everyone was feeling things out. We didn't really know what to do. Then we set up, happy hours and coffee breaks and all those things. People ended up working, more hours than normal because just the day was endless and it never ended. And I think we've evolved and back into our normal routine. At least I could feel that. For me, my team, it seems like we're communicating just about the way we were before. But I will say that personal relationship building type of communication or communication has been lacking a little bit. So I've struggled a little bit with that. Talia asks another Corona-related question: what does our hiring process look like during COVID? Like many companies, we slowed down and assessed the situation. So immediately after, we just kind of were, taking a pause and seeing what was happening. As time has gone on, it's resumed as a normal, growth stage company. It's resembled what hiring is like in a normal stage. We're very much about responsible growth. So we went through a huge growth surge 2019, and now we are at a more measured pace since then. And so, like I said, it kind of just paused, and then now we're back to just kind of normal, responsible growth. How hard is it to get buy-in from other departments for product marketing? So I think this was asked pretty early in the presentation. I think it wasn't super hard once we showed the quick wins and the value. It was always, and it always has been, hardest from engineering because they're just naturally skeptical. But even there, I think we've shown some value, and I think we've proven what the value of it is. So it hasn't been as hard as maybe it could have been. How do we interact with our demand generation team? That's a great question. So, first of all, we have a fantastic relationship with our demand generation team. They're led by people outside of the US, so it required a lot of travel for me to build those relationships. But I did, and the leaders there are people that are, that were also joining around the same time as me. And I would say it's very good. It's not perfect, and we've learned a lot in the time since we started. I think my team had a tendency to just assume demand gen would follow some of the global things that we wanted to do, where demand gen was more focused regionally. So we've had to do more work in sharing what we're doing earlier rather than drop it off to them once it's done or near completion. And that was something that we learned that we could have done better in the first 6 months or so. We just, I think, come a little too close to launch time sharing that. So now we're months and months in advance in giving them and building a roadmap together. And I think we are complementing each other greatly there. Okay. I have a sales team that says, leave us alone to sell unless there's something brand new. That, that's sellers, right? That's going to happen. How do you establish the importance of product marketing to your sales VP? Building the relationship, showing the value, all that stuff I talked about as part of how you evangelize product marketing. And I would say build good relationships with the enablement team. That's really, really important. They're one of your main instruments into, if you have a sales operations and a sales enablement team, they're one of your main avenues into impacting sales. So we have a very good relationship with our sales enablement organization. Every quarter, they sit down to plan quarterly readiness training. They sit down to plan what they're going to, train on and teach and what they need. And we are at that table early with them on that. Next question, do you have a partnership ecosystem and do you have PMM specifically focused on that? We do have a partnership ecosystem. If it's an OEM type relationship where we're integrating some technology, that product marketing manager that owns that area, so if it's the run area or it's the discover area, that product marketing manager who owns that area and or product will be the one interacting with the partner. and then we also have a product marketing manager who owns our integrations and APIs marketing, because we have a lot of custom integrations built with some of the biggest, software platforms in the world. And so that person works on evangelizing that. How is your team and the branding team? How your team and the branding team works together? I have a fantastic, I love working with our branding team. Mary Tetlow is our head of branding. She is genius at this stuff. That whole forward stuff you saw, the design, the kind of this logo redo. She's the mastermind behind all that. And her team is just fantastic. I will give you an example of how I work together with the branding team. I bring these product positioning ideas to them early, and we work together on the execution and the actual development of the idea. So for that life cycle diagram I showed, the first time I presented it anywhere as a concept was to the marketing leadership team in Bucharest about 3 months before the event in which we unveiled it. And I was working on it on the plane on the way to Bucharest, and I just so happened to be sitting next to our chief creative director, Will Redman. And it was serendipity in a sense, because we were sitting on the same flight, but we worked together I showed him what I was doing. He's such a creative guy. He started pitching ideas back and forth. And then we showed up together to the marketing leadership meeting and showed this version of that layout in a much better way. And so we're partners, basically. That's just a story to illustrate that we're partners, and we have some new stuff I just launched that we partner with. So we are very, very close with them. Is there a separate content team outside of PMM, and how would you describe the difference in charter? So there are many content. This is an interesting question, because you could centralize content or you can federate it, right? And we have content teams localized and globally. So we have chosen a less rigid structure on content with the positive trade-off of speed and localization, which we believe is more important than avoiding some overlap, which we do have, right? And control, which we can suffer from. But we are moving so fast, and in a hyper-growth mode, you have to be able to react fast, that we have these independent content teams. They communicate, they have regular check-ins, they share, but there's no centralized content leadership. Let's see here. I think that's the last one. Okay, it's 1 o'clock my time, which means the end.
Great, pretty much bang on.
Cool.
Thank you, Diego. Cheers for such a great session. Really, I think people really enjoyed the breadth and depth. One of the people in the chat said so. Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time today.
All right, thanks, Max. Thanks,
Awesome.
PMA.
And
thanks, everyone.
for everyone for tuning in and asking really good questions as well.
Thank you.